Yo, welcome to another episode of ZFK Talks. We got the mop. We're going to chop it up while I'm rocking my semi-homeless, unemployed persona right now. Straight out of the bush. Bush crazy, number 2. Many of you probably know I love to plan out my videos, and they end up being a little bit longer than they should because I just pack a little bit too much info in there. But I'm getting this mop cut in the next 20 minutes. I'm just lurking behind the barber shop here at JO in Niagara Falls. Just got home less than 2 days ago. Probably not even 24 hours ago. So here we are. Mop 2023. Let's keep it going. Bush crazy too. So I guess where I wanted to start is like the big difference in returning to tree planting, because a lot of people will complete one season and that is enough for a lifetime. They don't need to do it again. I don't fault nobody for that. The big difference is when you're a vet, I think your attitude and your enthusiasm kind of changes to tree planting for at least most of us. It's kind of like an adapt, overcome, and just shut the fuck up kind of mentality you got to come in with. Although many of the days are bad, you don't want to let on to colleagues and your crew boss necessarily that the day is going bad. You can not only convince them that you're doing good mentally and production wise, but if you're fooling your coworkers and your crew boss into thinking that you're doing good, you might as well just take the whole other step and convince yourself that you're doing good too. And really, I think like kind of just rinsing and repeating that and showing up to work every day, and even though it sucks and you don't want to do it, but you kind of just do it anyways. If you keep doing that every day, you're going to plant a lot more trees and make a lot more money at the end of the day. And it's just keeping down on things that waste time, like sitting at the cache, having a cigarette, or smoking the cigarette while you're doing some other stuff like bagging up or whatever you need to do, etc., etc. Kind of having every cache break down to, okay, well, I'm coming in, this one's going to be water. Okay, we're coming in, this one's going to be snack. Okay, I'm crunching on time. This one we're coming in, we're dumping the bags and the trees in the bag, and we're taking back off. Those kinds of things and doing it enthusiastically is kind of where it's at, and setting an example for rookies that are coming in and showing them the way and the attitude that one needs to have is a big thing. I think like something I really improved in as a vet was just like the overall attitude. I did a lot of like sulking and pouting, not in front of other people, but definitely on my own as a rookie, and had like a lot of crappy days. This year really found that I never bitched to anyone else, and if it was in like a good spirited manner, in a way that would not only cheer me up and make them laugh. Those kinds of things, like you don't want to be the guy that brings down the morale. So kind of just shot into that. That's what it's like to be a vet in my experience in my second year. Showing up to work every day of the season for over 3 months, doing it with some level of enthusiasm every day, and cutting down on wasted time and trying not to take breaks and such, just kind of planting at all times for the day, even if it's at a slow pace. Did help me get my numbers up. So I went from about 86,000 trees in my first year. This year, with a little bit of extra time, I was able to hit 127,500. If we're being honest, that's some mid-baller shit. That's not high-balling. I mean, it's good. I'm sure it's a lot more than many people at camp. It's a number I'm happy with, and it's a number that got me enough after camp costs and minimum wage payments to pay off the stage of ZFK Talks, the 2019 Honda Civic. So sick of paying $400 a month for this thing. The maturity would have been a 7-year period, but we're coming up on under 5 years, so it's going to be really nice to just have that out of the way. I'm trying to get out of debt by the end of the year. That's the car, student loan. Got out of credit debt a while ago, which I had gotten into because of C19. And that's kind of the goal by the end of the year. And if I could utilize tree planting to knock off one of those debt list items, then that's great. I am a world champion mid-baller. Ain't nobody be planting 2Ks every day as slow as I can. I do it so slow, so sexy. It's a pleasure to watch. I'm sounding awfully full of myself. It's kind of funny because it's something I had written down forever ago and just popped into my brain. I really do be crushing world-class, excellent 2Ks every day, slower than anyone else can. It's like slow motion planting, and somehow I still put 2,000 trees or so in the ground every day. At 17 cents, that puts you over $300 a day. Could you be making better money somewhere else? Definitely. But to be out in the wilderness and have this wonderful experience that I have decided I needed to do a second time, and definitely a third time and more, you can live off that every day, especially when you're living in a tent. So yeah, it's nice. Compounds over the season. It was enough to pay off my car, which is definitely something that I was really looking forward to getting out of the way. And while we're on that topic, like, what is a low baller, a mid baller, a high baller? Well, low baller's probably under 1,200 trees a day. Your mid baller is going to be about 1,800 to 2,300 trees a day, which is generally where I was. It's better to just mid ball every day instead of killing yourself for those high ball days and coming in short the next day, because you're shooting for averages every week. 5-day shift, you want to do 10,000 trees, which is an average of 2,000 trees per day, right? 2,500 to 3K a day is definitely high balling. Someone consider that to be a little too generous and too low. That is how it is in my opinion. You definitely need some effort to get over 2,500 a day. 3,000 to 5,000 a day is super cyan. Is that a widely accepted term? Definitely not. It's just, how the hell are you doing that? And anything over 5,000 a day is just unclassified. Like, you're just a beast. You have something to prove, and you're pretty much just going to solve climate change single-handedly at that trajectory every single day as a career. So this year, working for the same company with generally like kind of some of the same contracts, it was like things changed, but they also rhymed at the same time, down to very bizarre things like exactly when we left to road trip from Ontario to Alberta for contracts, and when we went to Jasper, because we do Jasper as a traditional thing that we do, 2-day weekend as a reward, I guess. Like, things like that kind of lined up. I had the privilege of working for someone that would hate me for saying this because they're very humble, but they really are a legend in our company community. Camp HighBaller, over 200,000 trees, $250,000 in a season, if I do recall. Just really, really an excellent planter that did good quality and also like planted just a ton of trees, made himself a good check. He ended up switching to Crewboss because the company needed him quite desperately, and because I wanted to grow and have a little bit more pressure as to what I needed to plant generally, I requested that I would work for him. I ended up being great. Chris is a great guy to work for. He knew when to push you and when not to, but most of the time it was pushing you, and just overall generally like pretty organized and really worked his tail off. He would always make sure that you had trees, and even if that meant quads broken down and he's got to carry in bags of trees that are like 20 or 30 pounds each as they're slipping through your hands, this guy would do whatever he needed to get you those trees, and therefore you're always, with no excuses, able to be planting and making money. The camp dynamic this year was a little bit weird. Some of the OGs from our Ontario, Alberta camp that came back, we had a group of 10 or so planters that were Ontario vets come from a different HRI camp who likes to ski bum, my crew boss this year. Big White BC pulled a ton of rookies from this resort, and a lot of them were Australian. Other ethnicities, we had like an Italian and a German. Them making up as individuals, they're all great, but them making up the majority of the camp was like super weird. It was kind of like we do what they want to do. And like in Ontario, it just started weird. Instead of having people on top of doing booze night events, which is where everyone really comes in and meshes, that all fell apart and didn't really get great till the end of the season. And people had their own fires, so there'd be like 2 to 4 fires at the Ontario camps instead of one where we all can go to in the morning to warm up, drink some coffee, and one fire to come to, eat your dinner, hang out, shoot the shit with other people, have a smoke. That kind of got blown to smithereens, and we had like separate fires, so everything became so cliquified. And you know, as you spend time with people over a whole season, like everyone does come in and mesh together regardless, and that sure did happen. But I think I realized I had it as good as I did in my first year, where there really was just like a magic to it and everyone like just jived so good. I took it for granted, obviously, because I just assumed tree planting was always going to be that dope every year you come back. And like I think production wise this year was like way more sweet, and like obviously the money's better because of that. Camp dynamics and the social life really took a hit. Like I spent a lot more time by myself this season. That would have ruined some people mentally, but myself personally, I'm cool with that. I already spent a lot of time by myself. I just have a hard time finding people that I really rock with like that, you know? So lots of alone time, not like hermit, like I still socialize a lot and whatever. Like I love that aspect of camp. Did lots of reading and hanging out by myself and kind of planning for what I would do after the season, so that part was cool. And things did get better throughout the season. We had our booze nights teed up with events and ridiculousness, and just getting to know people better. And that's one of the nice things with tree planting. It's a lot of people that you don't know from other places within your country or outside of your country. So when you leave, especially this year, having so many international planters, you just have connections all over the world now that you can kind of go and leverage whenever you go travel places. And you know, they're almost like your tour guides. They're like your buddies and your tour guides. You go and catch up with them for good time's sake. They know where the good spots are. Maybe you get a free place to stay. You know, vice versa. If someone wants to come to where I am in Ontario, I don't know why they'd want to do that. Besides a big waterfall, they have a place to stay, and I'll show them what's good. If I had to pick one thing that I learned as far as production goes that was like a huge game changer, it'd be them swirly flags. The swirly flags are just... they're OP. They're God. Like nobody beats a swirly flag. And what do I mean by that? So there's different kind of flags. You can not flag your trees depending on the piece. You can have the flag through your shovel. You rip off a piece, drop it on the ground next to the tree every time. It's a little bit time consuming. And then we do have high flagging. High flagging you need when you have what we call green out, and it's like all of the land is covered in like more matured, reclaimed kind of space. It's not like they've just freshly harvested land. It's been there for a while, and nature's kind of reclaimed it. So the visibility is really terrible, and you can have bushes and grass as tall as you are. So what I found myself doing last year and this year that really killed my numbers on those days was flag is through the shovel. I'd rip the piece off, like a long piece of flag, throw the shovel on the ground. Now this hand has nothing in it. I'd look at whatever I need to flag onto, so I would tie it off. Then I'd grab my shovel again, grab the flag, put it through the shovel again, and start planting. And that took so much time, and it would kill my numbers every time we were in a green out piece. So basically, the new technique, the swirly, you have the shovel and the flag is coming through your fingers. You pull a piece off, and then you find something that works, and you basically just swirl it around. It usually stays, and then you keep on planting. Your shovel's never left your hand. Super OP. Great technique. I'll have to put a video of my shovel in the video because I meant to bring it in here for demonstration purposes. It's just kind of cool to have like a tool that you put so many trees in the ground with. In my case, about 215,000. Yeah, I'll keep that thing forever. Sweet. What else did I learn? Started to look at lining back to the cache like flying a plane with low fuel. So if I go into my piece with 300 or 400 trees and I go all the way to the back and I start backfilling, then I kind of like, after a bag up or two, I know how many trees approximately I need to plant all the way back to the cache to reload my trees without having to deadwalk. And deadwalking is just walking without planting, because you want to be planting at all times, right? So definitely sharpen my skills there. Would do stuff like that, or even if it was like a long piece, a deep one, or like one where you're on top of a hill and you have to go all the way down, but to reload your trees at the top, or vice versa, you got to go up. Sometimes I would pack 300 or 400 trees, and then I'd like throw another 100 to 200 bundled trees which have plastic wraps around them, put them in my very back bag, and basically once I get to the end of wherever I need to go, then I would drop the extra weight, plant the trees, come back and pick up the extra bundles and do that, and then go back to the cache, because it would just like make more sense that way. Just general time management too. Like I can honestly say this season, I don't think I ever took a break longer than I needed to, as far as having some water, and or like eating and like bagging up the trees. It was a lot more streamlined, and because of that I was able to plant more trees with like less effort, because even if I spend more time planting very slowly, I'm still getting more trees in the ground than if I was sitting at the cache just relaxing for an extra 5-10 minutes, which like, well, you want to do that all the time, but you just abstain, right? So yeah, like just general time management. Time management is so important in tree planting. There's just not enough time in the day, and it doesn't even just apply to planting. It's like the lifestyle. You wake up, you got to get whatever you need out of your tent, whatever clothes you need for the day, whatever snacks you're going to make yourself for lunch. You got to eat breakfast. You got to try and allot time to have coffee and relax for 5 minutes. You got wet clothes. You got to go like make sure that those dried up overnight in the dry tent, and getting dressed and getting to the van on time and taking a poo, whatever it may be. Like your time management gets sharp in tree planting, and it's the same thing after work too. As far as just the downtime, licking your wounds and preparing whatever you need for the next day while still getting some quality relaxation time in. The first one that was kind of cool, I was planting a couple 100 meters down from my first 2 pieces ever in Algonquin Park, where I got to go check out some of my first year trees. Your trees just kind of germinate in the first year. Didn't really look a whole lot different, if I'm being honest, but it was still really cool to see trees that I put in there the first day I ever tree planted when I was clueless and I had no idea what I was doing were still there. I was in a piece. I'm here. The residuals here, which is like the forest line, and then my friend Mara is also equidistant to it, but like further down. And I'm planting, and it's like early morning, beautiful golden light going through the forest, and lo and behold, I now have bear spray this season, but it wasn't in my back bag yet. It was in my block bag, which is like your lunch bag that sits over at the cache where your trees are to reload. Lo and behold, a huge, massive, full-grown, mature wolf, kind of grayish, kind of brownish in color. Like honestly, it just looks like Jacob from Twilight. I'm pretty sure that's what his name is. Comes running through the residual line, and I'm just like, is anyone else seeing this? Because oh, I guess it's just me. And then my friend's over there, but she's throwing plots, which is like measuring the density of the trees we planted. And it's one of the few times I've ever been like frozen shocked. It wasn't in like fear, but it was more so like, yo, I need to reach and go get my phone right now. And by the time that wolf had started to pass, I was like, yeah, it's too late. I'm just gonna like behold this majesty. Sure enough, 2 more big wolves come running, and they're kind of like all chasing each other in a line. And by the time they pass, I go, yo, Mara, did you see that? She's like, huh? It's like 3 huge ass wolves just ran by you. And she's like, what the hell? How did I not see that? By the time that happens, the wolves are like deep in the forest, and I see them disappear, and then one of them runs back, kind of like checks us out, and then dips back in the forest. And it was just like one of those crazy things I'll never forget, being like that close to like 3 animals that would just rip me limb to limb. Needless to say, bear spray was in my planting bag every day for the rest of the season, because you just never know. Another animal encounter, I had a deer jump in my piece. Couldn't figure out why. My boy was just chilling. Then the next day I returned to that piece after the deer had been in there with me for like 2 hours, like within reasonable proximity for a deer. And I figured out, oh, my piece is full of raspberries and blueberries. That's why he wasn't so scared. The treat was worth the danger. We had a different day where one of the girls on our crew set off a bear banger, which is explosionless firework. I guess we can call that what that is. I'm just kind of like, what the hell? Thinking like, oh, we're gonna get hunted right now. No one would ever know. Someone's just out there with a sniper. A couple minutes later, another bear banger goes off. I'm like, oh shit. We see a lot of wildlife in Alberta, including bears, but like rarely in our workspace, usually on the roads at a distance where you want them. Come to find out, the first girl thought, or maybe she did see a deer, but it freaked her out. Didn't realize it was a deer. She sets off the bear banger. Nothing bad happens. Another 2 girls in my crew were paranoid from the first bear banger, and they thought they seen something in the bush or the residual. They set off a bear banger. It was kind of serious, and it wasn't cool to have the bear bangers going off when it's not an emergency. So that was something that was said later in the day. The next day, it was like the boy who cried wolf. In a hilly block, I'm at the top of this schnarb show, like one of the worst pieces I've ever seen, at the top of this hill, and I hear a bear banger go off the very next day. And I'm like, the boy who cried wolf. Who the hell's fucking around with these fucking bear bangers again? And then not long after that, I start hearing yelling. A lot of it. And I'm like, oh, this isn't a false alarm. They're yelling at a bear. Cue the clip. Basically, our crew boss ran the bear out of the block. I had ran all the way down my piece, abandoned my line of trees because I had bear spray and I didn't know if whoever was near a bear had it. And by the time I got out there, the bear was already retreated to the woods. So that was my first experience with a bear on the block. I didn't actually see it, but still pretty crazy nonetheless. This was definitely a season of fires. It was the worst year for forest fires on Canadian record, and we had them in Ontario, near where we were actually. We did Algonquin near Petawawa, Pembroke, Ontario, near the Quebec border. We did Timmins in Ontario. We had fire near our camp. We had to stop doing fires due to a fire ban, and it was very hazy and smoky for a bit. Alberta wasn't too bad, but there was fires in the Northern Territories of Canada, the East Coast, Ontario, Quebec, BC, Alberta. However, on my way there was a really bad fire in Edson, Alberta, not too far from Grand Cache, where we plant our contract in Alberta. And I'll let some of the footage speak for itself. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like that. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's like almost nighttime outside. The lights in my car are brighter than it is outside, and you open the door to pull over and check it out, and it's like you're getting slapped in the face by a campfire. Super strong stuff. It's wild. As soon as I passed through the area, I got an emergency notification on my phone that that area was being evacuated, so kind of made it through in the nick of time. Snowmageddon was crazy. It was Father's Day, first week or two of Alberta in like mid-June. I stay up till midnight, which is way too late, speaking to my parents, and I wake up at 3 a.m. to the sound of this crash, and immediately this fabric hits my face, and I realize that something collapsed on my tent. And it's like mid-June, so I'm like, oh, like a tree fell over or something. Unzip the door, there's like a half foot of snow outside. It was wild. I'm immediately like, group chat, hey guys, I'm not coming to work tomorrow. Have fun. Sorry, but if my tent is flooded and covered in snow, I'm not going to work and having nowhere to sleep. Luckily, about 10 other people's tents also collapsed, so work was called off the next day, and we were able to go in and get new tarps and new tents. Basically, I had like tarps on tarps over my tent, and when all that snow came down within like a 3-hour period, the ropes snapped, and then the tarps came down on the tent, and the tent poles snapped, and it all melted like a day later. I had inches of water in my tent. Everything was just destroyed. I had 2 tents running, a temporary one and then a big one to swap out the big one, and I just got all my electronics out and basically said, screw it, the tent's done. All the bedding and the clothes and stuff all got soaked. So it's kind of fluke. There's no way around that. I never thought that would have happened to me tree planting, and better luck next year, I guess. We had a hail monsoon, many of them, but one of them was the craziest shit I've ever seen. I was planting with a no sleeve on to the back of this piece that I was sharing with other people. I see this wall of rain coming. I'm like, uh-oh. So I hit the back and I flip around a line and try to plant back to the cache. And hail starts coming. It hurts. It's pretty intense. I'm like, oh no. I get back and there's two of the rookies sitting there with PRT boxes over their heads taking cover. I'm like, okay, I'm just grabbing my rain jacket. I'm going to show these suckers. I'm going to bag up some more trees. I'm going to go back in there and be all badass. Sure enough, by the time I get the rain jacket on, it starts coming down 2 or 3 times as hard. I've never seen hail like that before. Like literal bigger than dimes, probably like quarter size. And it's one of the few things I didn't get to film this season because my phone was dead, but it's literally burned into my memory. Like, it was just wild. And there was nothing you could do. Pretty much ruined the day because it was towards the end of the day. And you could just see tree stumps with steam flowing through them, and you couldn't see the mountains anymore because there was so much rain, and it was just so intense. You're waiting for it to pass. We look in the distance and there's like a figure waddling through, and as the figure gets closer, they're wearing a sylvie on top of their head and they're walking blindly. A sylvie is basically like a tree bag that you can put trees in to keep them cool, and he's walking with it on his head and waddling through the clear cut block with the crazy hail. And yeah, we basically all just sat there and consoled each other and waited till it passed, and that was the end of the day. Coming home on the back of a truck, I'll never forget the faces of some of my crew members just looking completely PTSD. Can't believe it just happened to them, and just couldn't wait to get home. It was so intense I drew it. That's how intense it was. Even the next day we hit that same block because it was a 400,000 some odd tree block, and we had been in there for almost 2 weeks, and all the land that was dry prior that we had planted was now a river the following day with the amount of hail and rain that was coming down during that week. And we had trees that would have been on dry land that were now multiple inches underwater, if not in like a little river. So Alberta weather is pretty crazy. It was extra crazy this year, and you really just couldn't predict, so you have to be ready for any kind of weather when Alberta planting. I'd love to add more to this. I love to keep flapping my gums, and I love to talk about tree planting. It's time to get this mop cut off in about 3 minutes. Lurking behind J.O. You know, if you're from Niagara, a lot of people think when you're saying J.O., which is like their brand, you're saying jail. It's kind of funny. Anyways, not lurking behind the jail. I have to go get my hair cut. I'll slide some footage over top of this. I didn't want to plan this out too hard. I wanted it to be shorter than the last Bush Crazy video, and I think I've achieved that. And you know, it doesn't really matter that this is a lower quality video and just off the cuff. I am making another episode of the Guardians of the Earth documentary. I don't want to get into exactly how it's very different from the first one and the changes made. I want to let the documentary speak for itself. Yeah, super stoked to bring that to you guys. Definitely gonna spend a couple months working on it and invest some capital into it. And it's gonna be a whole new take on my experience tree planting, and it'll be actually less from me and more from other people. And I guess that's about as much as I'm gonna give you. Probably February or March, Guardians of the Earth Season 2 will be done. I guess if there was an outtake message here, go tree planting if you have time. If you're into that, it's gonna break your comfort zones and basically whip you into shape. If you're a first year that was petrified of coming back for the second year, definitely worth it. And the experience that you have invested in and the gear you've invested in the first year comes back and pays huge dividends in the second year. No doubt about that. All right, guys, gotta go. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe, leave a comment, hit the like button. ZFK out. Bush Crazy 2. Peace out. Ciao.